When Deion Sanders first got hired by Colorado, the thing that most people were excited about was how good the recruiting was going to be. And initially, I was one of those people that were thinking that Colorado will at least have a top 25 recruiting class due to the fact that they have Deion Sanders as your head coach, because who would not want to play for Deion Sanders? He's an NFL Hall of Famer. He was a historic college football player at FSU. And if you want to know anybody who could help get you to the NFL, it would be Deion Sanders. But for some reason, the recruiting hasn't taken off that way. And I've now started to realize that, yeah, Deion Sanders is Deion Sanders and everybody knows who he is and he's a really polarizing person. Just because you're Deion Sanders doesn't mean that any recruit is going to want to play for you. You're also going to have to sweeten the deal. And a couple of weeks ago, Deion Sanders came out and said that Colorado's not an ATM and they're not going to pay for players. And then a couple of days later, I see a story that comes out saying that Deion Sanders says that his donors need to step it up because they need to be able to pay some of these top-level players. And you see, with Deion Sanders, Colorado's recruiting to me has been really disappointing. Right now, they have lost 3 commits in the past 24 hours. Now, at the end of the day, I still feel this recruiting class is going to be pretty good, but not as good as what most people expect it to be. Let's be honest, who would have thought that Colorado, their recruiting class, would be only 2 notches better than their rival, Colorado State? And Colorado State plays in a G5 conference. A G5 conference. They play in the Mountain West. Hell, ECU, Eastern Carolina, one of the worst teams in all of college football this year. One of the worst G5 programs in America this season have a better recruiting class than Colorado. And USF, another Power 5 program that has another recruiting class that's better than Colorado's. That's extremely disappointing. And National Signing Day is just around the way, but the majority of the teams that are in the top 25 already have their signing classes pretty much secure. There's not going to be too many decommits that we're going to see happening. Now, of course, there are other programs outside of Colorado that are experiencing a wave of decommitments, but Deion Sanders, I don't see now one 5-star offensive lineman on this recruiting class right now, and it doesn't look like they're in the running for any of the big ones. I was thinking that Deion Sanders, being as big as a name as what he is, could walk into any recruit's living room and they'll listen, and they're listening, but it's not easy to sell everybody on the idea of playing in Boulder, Colorado, despite the fact that you're going to be playing under Deion Sanders. You see, I was talking to a football player that goes to my university who took an official visit to Colorado, not when Deion Sanders was there, but a couple of years ago under the previous regime. And he said that the university is nice, but, the city around the campus is beautiful, but it's not really a place that's easy to get recruits to want to go and play at. Deion Sanders, yeah, he's Deion Sanders, and he's a Hall of Famer, and he's one of the most recognizable athletes of all time, but that doesn't mean recruits are just going to flock to him. You're going to have to need that charm and charisma. You're also going to have to need to open that wallet book, and the fact that they're 65th in recruiting right now, according to 247 Sports, that's not something that I expected out of Deion Sanders. When he first got hired, you were expecting for Colorado to be a really bigger factor than what they are in recruiting right now. Yeah, they were able to flip Cormani McClain and Travis Hunter, but how many other top-level 5- and 4-star guys are they going to be able to get to come to Boulder and play? Colorado, I think the approach that they're taking to build this program up is putting more focus in the transfer portal because that's a quicker way to improve your team, and there's no problem with that. But it's just, you expect the recruiting to be a tad bit better than what it is. It kind of seems like Deion Sanders thinks just because he's Deion Sanders, recruits are going to want to play for him, and it doesn't work that way. You still got to be able to have money to pay these dudes, and the donors do need to step up. You feel me? If they want Deion Sanders to make this a championship-level program, they need to have championship-level players. And that involves you having to dish out a little bit of bread to get those kinds of players, especially on the offensive line. But let's not act like the recruiting isn't underachieving right now. The fact that there are G5 programs that have a better recruiting class than Colorado right now is extremely concerning to me. And these wave of decommitments, yeah, everybody goes through them, but I don't really see why people would be decommitting from Deion Sanders when this is somebody who is a pretty likable guy. A lot of people seem to really connect and fuck with Deion Sanders. So the fact that you're losing a 4-star quarterback in the 2020 class that is top 10 at his position, it concerns me a little bit. And maybe there's something going on behind the scenes that we don't really know about, but I'm not saying Deion is a bad coach. People make it seem like I'm hating on Deion Sanders, but I still believe in him. But the more I keep up with Colorado football, the more I start to realize that Deion Sanders isn't the coach that I initially thought he was when he first got hired. You see, at Jackson State, he was a big fish in a small pond, but in Division I college football and the Power 5 conference, he's looked like a big fish in the ocean, pretty much. You see, it's going to take more for recruits to want to play for Colorado than just being sold on the idea of, I'm Deion Sanders, I'm a Hall of Famer, and I can get you to the NFL. I think Deion Sanders' lack of coaching resume, being able to win at the highest level, really hurts him. And I was thinking that at least Colorado would be somewhere in the top 30. Vanderbilt has a better fucking recruiting class than Colorado right now. Why is it that Vanderbilt's having a better time recruiting and they're higher than Colorado in recruiting and they're not even good? And they've sucked for years. So let me know what you guys think about the current state of Colorado's recruiting. I think that they're taking the approach of they want to build their team through the transfer portal. And I do think that they're going to have a lot of success in the transfer portal this offseason because they got Shedeur Sanders. Regardless of how people feel about Shedeur Sanders, it's pretty obvious that he was the glue that kept this team together. Because when he got injured against Washington State, they looked awful. And even against Utah, if they had Shedeur Sanders, they probably win that game. Shedeur Sanders is a great leader. Anytime Colorado needed him to come through in big moments, he delivered outside of when they played Stanford. And even then, he's the kind of player that these players rally behind. They love Shedeur Sanders. The fact that people believe that the offensive line is deliberately setting him up to fail, I don't believe that to be true. Everybody loves Shedeur Sanders up there. He's a great leader. He's somebody that players want to play with. And he's also one of the best quarterbacks in college football. Even if you're a hater, you got to admit that he's going to be a top 3 quarterback walking into 2024 next season. And receivers want to play with that. They playing with a great quarterback increases their chances of not just getting seen and noticed, but making it to the NFL. So I do think that there are players in the transfer portal that want to play for Coach Prime and Shedeur Sanders at Colorado. But the recruiting, on the other hand, is a lot different. Because you got to be able to open up that checkbook. And I would at least thought that the recruiting for Colorado would be in the top 30 right now. And I don't think National Signing Day is going to come around and they're immediately going to go from 65 to a top 25 class. You haven't really seen them really hit the recruiting trail as hard as what you would have thought they would when he first arrived there. I would have thought that this would have been a great recruiting class right now. But the fact that USF and Eastern Carolina have better recruiting classes than Colorado is massively disappointing to me.